My name is John Muli, as introduced by the MCA. I stand before you to represent the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Charles Mashira of RBA, who was not able to be with you today because of a board engagement that had been scheduled before we received your invitation. It's my great pleasure and honor to stand before you and have a discussion around this area of pensions. I know someone said that we rarely think about pensions, and that's very true. Majority of us don't do that. We rarely look at our statements, and that conversation about retirement is not something that most of us engage with. But I want to tell you that at RBA, we engage with that conversation 8 hours a day, from Monday to Friday. So everything we think about, it's retirement. I know most of you would think that that is quite boring, but for some of us, it's actually something that we love doing. We have a passion for it, just talking and preparing people to retire in dignity. Yeah, so at RBA, I'm an assistant director in the supervision directorate by profession. I'm a pensions actuary, and I've been working with the regulator for the last 11 years or so, mostly dealing with regulations, policy formulation, and more technical work, which actuaries tend to do. So we are going to have a conversation. I may not be able to keep up to the standards that have been set by Simon. I'll try not to bore you before lunchtime, but I can bet. I don't think that I can live to that standard, but I'll do my best. Sometimes we try to complicate this conversation. We speak jargons and we use acronyms and names that make it more scary. So I'll try to simplify it as much as I can from a regulator's perspective. Before me, I see very serious practitioners who will be speaking with you, and therefore I'll speak more from a regulator's position. Okay, and my topic is going to be disrupting the norm, which I want to believe is consistent with what we've had since morning. We've been doing things a certain way for the last 25 years since RBA was established and the industry became of age. Is it about time that we thought of changing and doing things a bit different so that we can grow those numbers? Someone mentioned the figures in South Africa. At RBA, we've really been challenged by South Africa. I want to agree to that the asset base, in Kenya, we say we are at about 2.8 trillion, and we are very proud of that. It's a good achievement, but we can do more. South Africa, they are about 48 trillion Kenya shillings, and therefore we still have a lot of room for growth. We can only achieve that through partnerships with people like APA. All right, good. So on to my presentation. Please scroll to the next slide. Thank you. So this is what I'm going to address this afternoon. We look at, I'm sure all of us know what RBA does, but I briefly mention what we do at RBA. Some industry growth numbers. It's good for you to appreciate the journey that the industry has come through. We'll talk about some policy initiatives that we've introduced in the recent past, and then we talk about the future. We are more interested about the future. It's good that we've come this far. We've achieved a lot of growth. The people in this room have really contributed so much towards that growth. But we also have a future that we need to look at. So in terms of the industry overview, pensions assets as at December 2025 stood at 2.8 trillion Kenya shillings. It's a big growth. We came in the year 2000. That time, the total asset value was about 40 billion Kenya shillings. So there's been a lot of growth over the last 25, 26 years or so, up to about 2.8 trillion Kenya shillings. This money is held by pension schemes. It's held by pension schemes and players in the sector, players who do different services, including APA, who are very good at investments. So the total number of schemes that we've registered is that this figure is actually as at today is 1,032 pension schemes or registered schemes, and these are the active schemes. We also have quite a number of schemes that are not active, they are transitioning, or the employer closed shop, but the scheme continues to run. And that's about 50 schemes or so. In terms of membership, it's about 7.5 million Kenyans. This is both the dormant members and the active members. Dormant in the sense that you've stopped making contributions. You joined a scheme, somewhere along the way, either you left employment or circumstances changed, and that member stopped making contributions. And this number includes the NSSF membership. We regulate NSSF as well. It's part of the 1032 schemes that we regulate, and therefore the 7.5 million Kenyans include the members in NSSF. In terms of the ratio to GDP, 16%. I think someone mentioned that figure before, so we are at 16%. But as I said, we want to try to get it to 80%, like South Africa. By 2029, we want to try and get that figure to the total assets. We want to try and get it to 3.4 trillion Kenya shillings. And we think we are on the right track towards getting to that number. Coverage, 26%. Still on the, yeah, thank you. So in terms of coverage, we are 26% low. When we came in, it was at 16%. So we've grown by about 10% in the last 10 years. We want to try and see if we can grow that number faster. Talking about service providers, APA is one of the service providers that we've licensed. We've licensed APA to act as a pensions administrator, but APA also serves in the area of investment under the deposit administration arrangement. But that one is regulated separately by IRA, as you may all know. So in terms of administrators, we have 33 of them. These are the people that assist trustees and schemes to manage records and basically run the scheme on a day-to-day basis. Fund managers, these ones do segregated investments, so they are licensed by CMA, and they come to RBA for a secondary license. We have about 33 of them. Custodians, these are banks which keep custody of pension assets. When you have a segregated arrangement, we have 16. Then finally, there's a new player in the sector. Simon mentioned that they're licensed as a corporate trustee. We are now licensing corporates to act as trustees. So historically, we had individual trustees, but now a corporate can apply for a license to be a corporate trustee since 2023. And we now have 9 of them. Out of these 4 players, I think we see the majority of the interest in investments. Fund management and guaranteed funds, that's where we see a lot of interest. We get so many applications. In a month, we get about 2 to 3 applications by a fund manager. Our vetting criteria is very strict, so most of the fund managers licensed by CMA, they don't tend to meet our requirements as RBA, and therefore they don't get to make it to that number of 33. Good. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let's talk about the journey. We have been on a journey. I think the group CEO started by saying where it all started. I was actually not aware of that history, so it's good that I learned something today, that there was some bit of tussle at the beginning, so that we needed to get every player on board, particularly guaranteed funds, which in my view, I think have played a very critical role in this sector. So in 1997, we used to have pension schemes. Before 1997, there were pension schemes, but pension schemes were managed by employers. So an employer would start a scheme, they would set up a team within the HR department. That team would be in charge of taking care of pension contributions and benefits. So over time, the government realized that that framework was not working because people would retire, but the money was never segregated. It was never set aside from the operations of the sponsor. Sometimes when there are other pressing needs, pension remittances were directed towards those needs. So there was need for the government to set up a regulator to bring order into the sector. And therefore, in the year 2000, RBA was established. That is when we started the business of regulating and supervising the retirement benefits sector. When we came in, as I said, we were only able to collate a total of about 40 billion Kenya shillings and a number of schemes, and that number has grown since that time. Moving forward in the year 2008, so when we came in the year 2000, we were basically checking whether people are compliant with the law. So there were even check boxes. I still see them in some of those old files that RBA would check, have you complied with the requirements of the law? Is it a yes or no? And then they will pursue you if you've not complied. But in 2008, we realized that was not working because you can have a perfect scheme. The checkbox is all complete. Everything is okay on paper. But when you get deeper, you realize things are not okay. So you'd get audited accounts, you get all these submissions that schemes make. But someone has to look deeper into the numbers to try and establish if there are issues. So we moved to risk-based supervision framework. We moved away from compliance-based. So now today, and you may have heard about that, we rate pension schemes. So we have different parameters that we look at, and we are able to rate schemes based on their risk score. Compliance is important, but we don't focus so much on compliance. We focus on your areas of risks and mitigation measures that you've put in place to address those risks. So the 1032 schemes, they have a risk score. That system also assists us to focus resources. Resources are limited, Simon said it, and therefore, as a regulator, if your score is up there, we put more effort on you compared to someone whose score is a bit low. So in a way, we are also able to manage our resources internally. 2010, something significant happened in the pension sector. The government sat down and they realized the schemes that we have in this country, majority of them that time for public sector were defined benefit schemes. They were exposing the government. They were exposing employers and the government because you would have liabilities, but you don't have sufficient assets to cover those liabilities. And most of the times, an employer would fall back on treasury if it's a government organization that, look here, we have a retirement scheme. We have 5 billion deficit. Please give us more money to finance the deficit. So there are a lot of calls for bailout from the government, and therefore, government needed to make a decision. And they said, let's close all these DB schemes. So defined benefit schemes, there was a circular communication to every government organization that they needed to close their defined benefit scheme and establish a defined contribution scheme. And that's why over time, you may have noticed the number for DB schemes have significantly come down. I joined RBA in 2014. That time we had over 100 DB schemes. Today we only have about 53. And the 53 schemes, they're actually in the process of closing down. So in the near future, we are likely to have done away with DB schemes. So this was very significant because in a way it stabilized the sector. A DB scheme, there is no obligation on the sponsor. The sponsor is not, the employer is not taking risk. The much that they do is contribute their portion. They leave it to trustees to manage the money together with the service providers. So that risk was removed from employers and by extension, the government of Kenya. 2012 to 2018, we introduced 2 new products. Income drawdown product, which is an alternative to an annuity. Most players have this product. We also post-retirement medical funds. Someone mentioned the role of post-retirement medical funds, which is very critical. That was done in 2018. We are seeing a lot of traction and growth on PRMFs. And therefore, APA, we continue to invite these different players to give us more solutions to address the needs of our retirees. A critical need is medical cover in retirement. And I'm happy my senior in the room, the next speaker will be talking about post-retirement medical schemes. And I believe during that session, we'll explore it much more. 2021. So in 2020, government tells other government organizations, close your DB scheme. But in 2021, the government itself has been running a non-contributory defined benefit scheme for the longest time for teachers, civil servants, and police. So in 2021, they also made a call that this scheme is also exposing us. So because we closed the other ones, let's also close this one. So they closed the government DB scheme in 2021 and started a contributory scheme. It's called Public Service Superannuation Fund. you may have heard about it. So that was also significant. I'll say why in the next slide. 2023, we implement the Act of NSSF, Act of 2013, NSSF Act of 2013, which I'm sure all of us in a way or another have interacted with those changes, which required your contribution rates to go up from the previous 200 shillings to 6% of your basic salary. It's actually gross salary, I believe, you and the employer. So that was also significant. At RBA, we support that change. It's a very good change. It's a welcome change because it increases the contribution levels by our members. Then in 2024, we did a policy. All this time we were operating without a policy. We had regulations, good laws in place, but we did not have a policy which sets a direction for the sector. So in 2024, we came up with a policy through the National Treasury, and now we have a direction. As a sector, we have a direction. We have the pain points, and we have ways of addressing the different pain points, and we'll keep on monitoring that. So the National Treasury gave it to us to oversee implementation. Then we also introduced significant tax breaks for our retirees. Today, if you retire at the age of 50 and above, all your pension money is tax-free. So that was very significant because we've been pushing for it for the longest time. So finally, the government allowed it. All our retirees today are not taxed by KRA. Yes. Thank you. So in terms of growth in assets, I just wanted to spend more time here. And I look at the numbers from 2022. Before 2022, this graph was almost flat. It was not changing significantly. But from 2022, we started seeing a change. One of the reasons is what I alluded to. Remember the government changing its DB scheme to a DC scheme, which is contributory? Government is the biggest employer in this country. So them being the biggest employer, they also brought in a lot of contributions. So teachers, TSE is the biggest employer under the government of Kenya. So teachers, police, and civil servants, they brought in quite significant contributions into the sector. I believe in 2021, that number was about 4 billion shillings per month in terms of contributions. So that alone had a huge impact in terms of the growth of the assets. Then in 2023, you can see the graph in 2023, it's actually starting to shoot up again, and that is because of NSSF. So NSSF 2023, we moved from 200 to 6%. I know it was graduated over a period of time, but still, there was a big impact on it. So 2025, we close at 2.8 trillion Kenya shillings. Out of the 2.8 trillion, 30% of that money is seated in the two schemes. 30% of it is seated in NSSF and the Public Service Superannuation Fund. So there are two big funds, and we expect them to keep growing over time. Yes. Thank you. Let's talk about asset allocation. I know you guys do deposit administration, insurance company. You're in the business of doing insurance, and one of your products is the deposit administration product, or what we call it popularly in the sector as guaranteed funds. So this table shows you the permissible asset classes for pension schemes. There are about 14 of them, or thereabout. As you can see clearly, there is a big concentration on the first four. Government securities is at the top at 52%. So this is on the 2.8 trillion. 52% of it is in government bonds and treasury bills. Quoted equities, these are shares, listed shares. They are at 11%. Then there is immovable property at 8.6%. And finally, where you fall, guaranteed funds or deposit administration products, is actually number 2 after government securities at 19%. However, I also wanted to point out that even these guaranteed funds, when you lift the veil and you try to see where they're investing, it's also in government bonds, right? So the figure for government bonds, the 52%, is actually much more than that because guaranteed funds are also in government bonds. And I actually checked the numbers for APA. It's quite significant in government bonds as well. So they also use the same analogy that the rest of the sector is experiencing. So the other asset classes, many of them, we continue to introduce new asset classes. Even this year, we have proposed an additional asset class, but retirement schemes or pension money is not going towards those asset classes. So this is a big conversation in the sector, that yes, we have a lot of capital, but the capital is not spreading out. The capital is being concentrated on a few asset classes. So there is a conversation on diversification, risk management, diversification of exposure in the sector. Good. So 90.4% is in 4 asset classes. The rest of the other asset classes, not as much. We are starting to see traction in offshore investments. Private equity is also coming up. Rates tried, but it has not picked up so much. But we are watching out offshore and unquoted equities and private equity. And any other. There is a room for you to invest in any other asset class. What are some of the key challenges that we face? We have achieved growth, but where there is growth, there is an issue. You can't get it 100%. There's always an issue that you have to deal with. One of them is what I've just said, concentration risk, a lot of exposure in a few asset classes. And therefore, if something was to go wrong with any of those asset classes, it would mean that members' funds are at risk, including your money if you are saving for retirement. Unremitted contributions, this is a challenge that we are starting to experience now, particularly in public sector schemes, county governments, universities, health sector. There we are having a challenge in terms of remittance. At the moment, the figure is over 60 billion Kenya shillings. And we are engaging the government, the ultimate sponsor. Any public organization, the ultimate sponsor is the government of Kenya. So we are engaging the government of Kenya to come up with solutions to, sustainable solutions to this challenge. Lower replacement ratio. Kenyans are saving, but most of that money is not getting to retirement. Hii pesa tunachukua midway, some of us. So you change employers, the law allows you to access a portion of money, you use your money. And actually, our recent statistics show that most of the benefit payments are from withdrawals. People exiting schemes and accessing money. They are not even from pension payments or those other things. They are from withdrawals. So Kenyans are really accessing their pension money. The law allows it. We've attempted to reduce that. Sometimes it's challenged, and therefore we've not achieved much. So most of what we are doing now is sensitization work. There is a product that we are proposing. I'll talk about it as I conclude. So the replacement ratio in the country. So the replacement ratio is the rate at which you replace your final salary. If you are on a salary 100,000, what is the rate that you will replace that 100,000 when you retire? Will you replace it at 20,000 Kenya shillings, or you are moving from 100 to 20,000, or are you replacing with an equivalent amount? So at the moment it's about 34%. So if you're earning 100,000 Kenya shillings, you are likely to get a pension of 34,000 Kenya shillings. That's a significant adjustment in retirement. Low pension coverage, 26%. As I said, it's quite low. We want to grow it to 32%. Our biggest challenge is the informal sector. We have a huge informal sector in this country. People are not on pay slip, and therefore they don't have access to retirement schemes, and if they do, it's voluntary, and most of them are not joining. Policy interventions. So there are those challenges. What have we done to address them? As a regulator, you can't just say that we have issues. You have to propose solutions, and of course you work with the practitioners to get some of these solutions. So one of the solutions that we proposed, and we are glad that it came through, was the tax exemption. We believe that addresses the adequacy question, because if previously you would have been taxed at 30%, the government has essentially increased your take-home by 30%. They have given you back the 30%. So that's going to have a huge implication on the adequacy. We expect when we do the next research, it's going to grow from the current 34%. NSSF, as I said, NSSF is I know sometimes we say many things in the public, but from where we sit as a regulator, NSSF, implementation of this act was a good idea. Some of us are in retirement schemes. What the law does is that it allows you to contract out of NSSF or to opt out of NSSF if you have an existing scheme. But for the people who do not have schemes, who are the majority in this country, it's actually very good for them because there are many other Kenyans with other employers outside there who don't have schemes. They only contribute to NSSF. So them being increased their contributions from 200 shillings to 6%, that was very significant. And actually Kenyans are starting to appreciate. When Kenyans now they access their statement from NSSF, they are starting to smile and saying that it's starting to pay off because they can see the difference in their payslip. We also want to introduce what we call sub-accounts to address short-term needs for retirees. This is a topical issue I'll talk about in the last slide. In terms of coverage, tax reforms, we expect that pensions will now be competitive because they have more tax breaks compared to other investment products, and therefore we are likely to see more Kenyans coming into this space. Literacy programs, we do so much of this. This is one of our biggest budget lines in RBA, just sensitizing Kenyans and reaching out to as many as we can. Contractual employees. In government, I don't know whether in private it's the case, in government, certain positions are employed on contractual basis. So when you get to a certain level of employment, above there you become a contractual employee so that your performance can be assessed more regularly. So we now have many contractual employees, and the law has allowed contractual employees to join pension schemes. Most employers are starting to do that. In RBA, we have the same arrangement, and we've actually allowed our contractual employees to participate in the scheme. Sustainability of the system. You can have a system, but is it sustainable? How long can the system withstand shocks from the sector? So some of the things that we are doing is that we are advocating for diversification. Remember the slide on the exposure? We really want schemes to get outside there and get different asset classes so that if there is shock on one asset class, members do not feel the effect in their benefits. Member choices in investment. Someone mentioned this, I think that was Simon, that we now need to start moving from the IPS of the scheme to the IPS of the member. I think that is extreme. Maybe at the middle ground, we can start giving members choices so that if I'm John and I'm very risk averse, I only want government bonds, you allow me to invest in government bonds. But if there is someone else, if there is a Dennis outside there who wants to be in very risky asset classes, they are a Gen Z and they are okay in Manza X and all these other interesting funds, they can allow you to invest their money there. So we are starting to advocate for member choices in investment so that it's only the board of trustees sitting down and making decisions on investments. You can involve the member in that process. And by doing that, you actually look at their risk profile. If this member is a risky investor, allow them to invest in risky asset classes, so long as they have the right information. Specialized fund management mandates, something that we continue to advocate for. Fund managers have been investing across the 14 asset classes. So we are now moving into a space where we want to advocate for more specialization. If you are very good at private equity, then we allow you to do private equities. And then a scheme that wants to do private equity, they can give you their capital. If you are very good at government bonds, then we allow you to just do government bonds. ESG conversation, it's a big topical issue today. I have a slide on that. So ESG, environmental, social governance considerations in pension schemes. We have 2.8 trillion. That's a lot of capital that can have a lot of impact in our country and on our people. So we'll talk about what we are doing about ESG. Innovations in the sector, sub-fund, I'll talk about that. Expansion of retirement products outside annuities and IDDs. One of the products that we've expanded to is medical products. Some retirees today have income and they have a medical cover. So we continue to advocate for that. And any other product that players like yourself can give us, because we still think that there's a lot of room for us to explore different retirement products. At RBA, we are working on a centralized data system. This has been a pain point in the sector, that data is an issue. You are with one administrator today, you switch to another one, data is not available or there are mistakes and errors in the data that has been transferred. So data, and we get many complaints relating to data. So what we finally did through the support of World Bank was to get support to come up with a centralized data system. That is going to, our aspiration is that we are going to maintain all the pension data centrally. So that when you change providers, you just plug in and you're able to get all the data for the members that have been transferred to you. So that project is underway. The future, let's talk about the future. That was the past. So what does the future look like? Some of these things I may repeat what has been said before. One of the things that we are looking at in the future, and you as a provider, is that members are looking for value. They are not just interested with getting someone to do the bare minimum. We give you your money, give us a guaranteed return of 4%. I work and I retire, and that's good enough. Members want much more than just that. So number one, they want retirement products to be able to compete with other products. One of the products that is really popular today in Kenya is money market funds. So money market funds, circles, or any other, including real estate, they want, when you are going to pitch that you have this product from IPA that you are selling to the member, you really need to convince that member, what is the value proposition for me? Why this product and not this other product? So value proposition is very critical. As players, we have a role to play in that. Adoption of sustainable practices. Yes, you're investing my money, but other than just investing and giving me a return, what else are you doing? Are you observing good governance? Are you observing your impact to the environment? And how are you treating people? So issues of ESG. Convenience in service delivery, technology. People today do not want to be sent to an office to access a statement. Or you have an issue and you are being referred to a branch of APA in a certain town. They really do not want that. They want service at their fingertips. And really, if we are to reach out to that generation, we need to be able to provide these services to them. So technology adoption is very critical for schemes. At RBA, we've not been left out. We are increasingly getting demands for more data from members. Members want a lot of information so that they can be able to make decisions. And part of the information that they have been requesting for is disclosure on returns. Tell us what these schemes are declaring. Publish it, make it public. APA and the other providers, make that information public. How much did they declare in the last few years? So they're able to make a decision. Trustee expenses, they also are asking us, make this information available. I'm in a retirement scheme. I know my trustees sit every now and then. I know they go for trainings, and I know they do all these things. Can you make a disclosure on how much that impacts my retirement? Fees for service providers. It's another very critical area that they are interested in. They want to know, disclose to me how much APA was paid to do administration for my retirement funds. So fees is another area. And then finally, they also want the regulator to disclose the sanctions that we've applied on different players. So if we ever penalize the PA for failure to do certain things, a member wants to know, tell me that you penalized the PA. Or a trustee wants to know, tell me that you penalize them, so that I'm able to use that information to make decisions. So there's this demand from our members that make more information available to us. We are working on what we call a surveillance report, which is likely to have most of this information in it. The NSSF effect, I think I captured that NSSF tier 2, they are quite substantial. Instead of us fighting it, can we find a way of coexisting with it? For example, if you have a scheme, you can contract out. You have an umbrella scheme with many employers, just opt out those employers so that they continue to contribute to your scheme. So there are ways of coexisting with NSSF. In terms of the numbers, as at today, we've approved close to 10,000 employers for contracting out. 9,855 employers have contracted out. The schemes themselves, out of 1032, 538 schemes have been contracted out by RBA. And we continue to receive a lot of interest on contracting out. Market realities. Someone said the environment is quite volatile, and that is likely to continue into the future. So how do we manage volatility? Diversification. Do we need to have that conversation much more? Concentration, I did allude to that. Is it time that we reimagine our investment regulations? Yes, we have those caps. We have a table G, most of you know it, which prescribes the investment exposure with all these limits. Can we reimagine that? Can we move more towards looking at the risk profile of the member and not prescribing where their money needs to be invested? And there's actually a committee that is working on that at RBA. Demographic realities, a huge young population, increase in life expectancy, change in labor dynamics, people are moving jobs, contracts of employment are being changed, and there's an expanding informal sector. That is going to be with us. The informal sector issue, it's going to be here for a long time. So we need to get solutions that address the needs for that market. Finally, as I conclude, let's talk about ESG. So ESG, environmental governance and social considerations, is a framework that enables an organization or an entity to look at risks that might affect its performance and value to its clients and its members. So these are risks that are not in the traditional way of looking risk. These are the risks that relate to governance issues, social issues, and environmental issues. When you talk about environment, we look at climate change. How are you assisting the world to manage climate change? With the money that you're holding, you're investing, are you keen on where you're placing that money in investments? Are you putting it in investments that address climate change? Carbon emissions, air and water pollution, biodiversity, deforestation, energy efficiency, even in the office. How are you addressing the issue of energy efficiency? Waste management, circular economy, water scarcity. So there are many areas that you can look at under the environment pillar. Social pillar, this is how your activities impact people as a scheme. Customer satisfaction, data protection issues, they are very critical. Diversity within the organization, or if it's a scheme, how diversified are you? Employee engagement, community relations, human rights, and cybersecurity issues. Then governance, and in governance, I think we've done very well in pension schemes, because all these schemes have governance requirements that they have to comply with. Constitution of Board of Trustees, audit committees, executive compensation, so we have an issue on remuneration of trustees, whistleblowing, fraud, management of those things. So in governance, we've done quite well as a sector. We now want to try and address these two other areas, environmental and social impacts that we have for our people. Next slide, please. Why does it matter? Yes, it's a topical issue. It's a fancy word, ESG. Why does it matter for you guys? So it matters because, number one, retirement schemes are investing your money. And this money is sizable. So they're managing sizable funds, and those funds need to act in the best interest of the public. So the financial health and operation decisions of the scheme can significantly affect your welfare as a member or even as a member of the public through decisions like investment decisions. And therefore, it is essential for such entities to be managed in a sustainable manner. If you're investing in a scheme and they don't do the right thing, they don't have proper governance structures in place, you lose your money. There is likelihood that you can lose your money. So we want it to be sustainable. So what have we done so that we can assist schemes to embrace ESG? So in the strategic plan that we are currently running on between 2024 and 2029, we came up with an objective that we need to promote sustainable investments by retirement schemes. To actualize this commitment, we have come up with a draft guidance note on ESG, which is addressed to trustees and players like yourselves so that you can adopt ESG. Additionally, other than what RBA is doing, we have a professional body called ISPAC. So they're in charge of reporting in the financial sector and audits and accounts that we do. So ISPAC, they came up with a roadmap in 2024, which told all financial sector players that this is how you need to adopt ESG. And they have actually classified pension funds as what we call public interest entities. So you are that important to the public, such that you need to adopt ESG. And the deadline for adoption of ESG for pension schemes is 1st January 2027. So next year, a scheme that does its audited accounts, it's supposed to make ESG disclosures, sustainability disclosures. So that's a requirement. They have made that communication public. Recently, they did an assessment for pension schemes. There was an assessment that was to be provided by 30th of June. Some schemes have done it, and therefore they're still in the process of preparing schemes towards these disclosures. So effective 1st January 2027, there will be those requirements. Actually check the audited accounts of APA, the company. You have sustainability disclosures. So such disclosures will now be expected to be displayed in the accounts of the scheme. Why is it being done? So that you avail this information to your members. So that if I'm your member and I think you are not investing my money correctly, I can have a voice. I can tell you, you're putting money in an investment that is not environmentally sensitive. And therefore you need to address that. Yeah, so there's that. It's going to be quite topical because there is implementation deadlines that are at play. At RBA, we have a special team that is assisting schemes through that process. Good. Last slide, I promise. I think I've taken too much time. So last slide, let's talk about this disruption, sub-accounts. So we are proposing, as a regulator, so that we can address certain things, certain challenges based on what I alluded earlier, that we allow our members to access a portion of their savings while they're still working. So you don't have to exit employment for you to access pension money. And trust you me, Kenyans are actually doing that. People are changing employers to access pension money. That's a driver for people to change employment. So how we are proposing to do it is to introduce what we are calling sub-accounts. So that we now have 3 accounts. We have your vested account. If you are a member of a scheme, you had saved a certain amount, that money is treated as your vested money. We continue to apply previous law to it. So how you would have accessed it previously, that is how it will be applied. However, there will be a leeway to transfer a portion of that vested portion to the savings portion. So that will be decided at some point. Our proposal at the moment is about 10%. So if you have your 10 million, you can transfer 10%, which is 1 million, to your savings pot. Now the savings pot, this is a pot that allows access. So over time, you can actually utilize the amounts in the savings pot. So if you transferred 1 million from the vested pot to the savings pot, in the future, because you still continue to make contributions, we apportion your future contributions. If you contribute 20,000 per month, part of that 20,000 goes to the savings pot, the balance goes to the retirement pot. So the savings pot will keep on growing. You gave it an opening balance from the vested pot, and then future contributions are part of it are in that pot. So that pot is the interesting pot. This is a pot that will allow you to access money at any given point. So you're still an employee of APA, you have a pressing need, your child needs to go to school. Instead of running to a Shylock, you come to your trustees and access your savings pot. You don't have to justify, that's the rationale at the moment, that you really do not need to keep explaining yourself that I have an emergency and specify what it is. Maybe you can have that conversation at some point. But the idea at the moment is that it should be as flexible as possible. But then there is the retirement pot. The retirement pot gets the balance of your contributions. So if we started today, the money that did not get to the savings pot goes to the retirement pot. This retirement pot, from the name, the money is to be used for retirement. So you can't access lump sum on it at retirement. You can't access 50% on changing employer. That is tied. You can only use it in form of an annuity or an income drawdown product. Now, why does this work to our advantage? Why does this serve the purpose for the industry, or what need does it address? Number one, is that these people that are choosing other products, maybe because they are more flexible, they will have an option for flexibility in a retirement scheme. They will have an option to access a portion of their money in a retirement scheme. Secondly, is that the money that is going to the savings pot from the contributions is limited. At the moment, we are proposing 30%. So if you are doing 30,000 per month, 10,000 goes to savings, 20,000 goes to the retirement pot. So it's limited, it's the lower proportion. And therefore, even if you accessed it, and we want to tailor that to the lump sum that is accessible at retirement. At retirement, you can access a third. So the same third should be available for you to use while you're still working. The retirement pot, as I said, which is accommodating most of the money, 70%, that money you can only use it for retirement. What do we cure? We cure the issue of accessing 50% at exit from employment. Because today when you exit from employment, you access 50%. In this arrangement, you can only access the savings pot, which is a third. A third is lower than 50%. So in a way, we have preserved more money than we are preserving in the current regime. And then it's allowing you flexibility. Our members do not really have to be pressed so much. At RBA, we see very dire cases. Someone is sick or their child is sick. They have 10 million in the scheme. They can't touch that money simply because they've not attained retirement age. That is what the law says. Unless you've exited employment or attained retirement age, you cannot access the money. So we want to allow some flexibility. There are things that are deserving that really we can allow people to exercise some discretion, because we've really exercised the discretion for them for the longest time. We have tied it. Let's allow our members now some freedom to exercise some options on their own. This proposal, what stage is it at? We considered it. We subjected it to the public, and it's gone to the National Treasury for further consideration. So it is our prayer that it's going to be accepted and see the light of day, because we think it's going to be a game changer in the sector. Thank you very much.